to this evening's leadership lecture. KK has done, since graduation from our institute in 1987, donned many roles, and is now part of the leadership team at Delta.
Narayanan Krishnakumar is CTO, Chief Technology Officer at Delta Airlines. KK is responsible for the cloud transformation program, overall technical architecture, quality assurance, and a number of key application delivery groups at Delta. As part of the multi-year cloud transformation initiated during the pandemic, he is leading the efforts for Delta's application layer modernization as well as new ways of working on the people side, all leading to fast and innovative solutions to enhance employee and customer experiences. Before joining Delta, KK spent 9 years at Dell Technologies EMC, where he was most recently Senior Vice President and CTO in Dell Digital. KK's 30-plus year career has included executive leadership roles within various industries and companies including State Street Corporation, Investors Bank and Trust, Fidelity Investments, and Belco. A BTech graduate in computer science from the Indian Institute of Technology, Madras. He holds a PhD in computer science from Stony Brook University and an MBA from the Babson College, FW Olin Graduate School of Business. KK is a published author with 19 technical papers, multiple awarded submitted patents, and an edited book, Databases and Mobile Computing, to his credit. A warm welcome to you, KK, and look forward to the most interesting session today. Thank you.
Thank you all. This is amazing. It's great to be back. I'm going to take my jacket off. I see a lot of t-shirts. But yeah, it's such a pleasure to come back to IIT, and I've not been a very regular visitor, so I do apologize if you've not seen me at all, right? So, but I did come 10 years ago for the 25th reunion, 25th year. So, even from hearing about the dates that I'm calling out, right? I graduated in 87, so I'm old. Usually you say it's characterized by gray hairs. I don't have any to show, but that's fine. So anyway, I just wanted to, talk about this topic called being powerful. And I don't have to talk about IQ in this presence, right? Because each of you who's here is incredible high IQ. But what we tend to forget is IQ is not enough by itself. And so that's where, our talk about being powerful it'll get into some of the software aspects of what it is, because I'm sure you all do excellent in being high IQ people. Okay, so that's what we'll get into. So just wanted to also introduce another colleague of mine at Delta Airlines, Anirban Chakrabarti, who's also an alumnus, right? He graduated in 2011 with a bachelor's in ME, Mechanical Engineering, and now he's currently head of operations in what we call the Delta Airlines Global Technology Hub in Bangalore. And so we have 3 technology hubs in the world, and so 2 of them are in the US. One is in Atlanta, which is our headquarters, and the other one is in Minneapolis. Again, that actually was created because of, I'm sorry. I usually have a loud enough voice, so. So anyway, so the other one is Minneapolis because it was the old Northwest headquarters, and then now our 3rd technology hub is in Bangalore. So again, part of it is we're slowly coming into India as well, and about 350 people in that technology hub, and Anandran will talk more about it later. Okay. So what is power? So let's just say we started saying what do we mean by being powerful? What is power? So, as usual, we will go to the dictionary. And so the top talks about being powerful is the possession of control, authority, or influence over others. And if you just look for synonyms, you see these very aggressive words: control, dominion, sway, authority. These are too aggressive for me, right? So when you say you want to be powerful, I'm going to have control? Maybe. How many of you think it's a good thing, having control? All of us, is it? A few of us, right? Let's go to the other definition also. It talks about the capacity or ability to direct or influence the behavior of others or the course of events. And so there are some similar sounding words there, which are, again, the red ones means it's more correlated. Strength, energy, capacity, muscle, and then some other words. How many of you like this as part of being powerful? A few. Oh, quite a few. Okay, good. So again, there are some of us who are aggressive, who want to have control and dominion. The others are, all of us, are going to say that, hey, we want to have the strength and the energy and the capacity. The important thing, though, if you look at both definitions, is there is a word influence, right? Which ultimately becomes the underlying principle of being powerful. We'll get to that in a little, okay? Now, one of the things that we always talk about, and being in a high IQ, technology-oriented audience, we always say that, hey, it's technology that runs the world. How many of you think technology runs the world? Nobody. A few, right? Not confident enough to raise your hands. Yeah, 4 or 5. Okay. How many of you think process runs the world? A few again. How many of you think people run the world? I gave the answer away, right? It is the people who run the world. It is us who run the world, right? It's not the technology. Technology is easy. I've been through some fantastic demos and presentations even today. I just came out on a presentation by some of the guys who are doing rocketry, and second year students, third year students, and they talked about 33 students who are actually doing this technology, and it's just incredible. We went and had a visit with the research park. Again, incredible kinds of things we saw, blown away by it. We met Professor Ashok Junjunwala as well, and he was talking about what are the amazing things that are being done. Now, the technology is very, very impressive, of course. And obviously, you need heavy level of process to do this. But in the end, it's you folks who are making this whole thing run. And so that's what comes to my definition of being powerful. It's not the control of the people, but it comes down to how are we going to have those relationships and having those mechanisms to influence each other. And each other is also going to be a very important aspect to it. Okay? So, it's not the technology or the process, it's the people. So what I'm going to do is just go into some of my own experiences and talk about what I've seen in my many years, where I've not had gray hair because it all fell out, but where it's starting to appear wrinkles, right? So what have I learned over the times? The first one is, if you look at any relationship, and this need not be only professional, this can be a life relationship with your life partner, with anybody, with your child, with anybody. The whole notion of mutual trust and respect is the foundation of any relationship. Now, this is not anything that, I invented, right? This is all something you've heard from everybody, including your parents, your life partner, everybody. But the reason I think that it's important to bring some of these ideas out to the fore is because we tend to forget. And so if at all I enable you to recall that these are important things, I would have done my job, right? And so I think this is the starting point of how you start to trust who you're working with and also respect. Trust and respect are not the same, as we know. Trust is all about, somebody else is going to do the job, I'll let them do the job. It does not necessarily say whether they're going to do the job well. It does not. Are they going to do the job to my satisfaction? So the respect part comes to adding to the trust, to saying that if I let them do what they are supposed to be doing, then I'll fully make sure that I'm not even, going to bother about doing any micromanagement of what they do. I'm going to let them run with it. And this is a very important management principle also. And I'll say it's more than management, it's actually leadership. Because where we work, we always say that you typically have work and you have people. And we don't say, you manage the people and lead the work. You switch it, right? You say that you lead the people and manage the work. And how you manage the work is typically, because you have to work with many, many people, is by saying that I'm going to delegate as much as I can. Because really the team concept is what the most important thing is, right? You got to delegate. You got to run some notions of leadership. You got to say that, I'm going to trust and respect what the other person, set of people are doing so that they can get the job done. So that's number one, right, to me. Mutual trust and respect.
And by the way, if there are any questions along the way, feel free to stop me and say, hey, I disagree, or I don't think what you're saying is right. Because, again, these are things I've learned over time. You may have learned other things over time also. Okay? So feel free to interrupt me. So number one is mutual trust and respect. The second is you have to be supremely confident, about whatever you're doing. And what that means is, it does not mean you be arrogant. You have to be very humble about what and how you do it. But you have to know your stuff. That's the corollary, if you will, at the bottom. So if you had to teach somebody about what you're doing, and you know, people talk about you were to teach your grandma, this is what I do, and you have to explain it, you have to be able to explain it in as simple a way as possible so that it's clear. Because really, I don't think you're explaining to your grandma, you're explaining to yourself. And so you have to be very, very clear about what you're doing, and that's what leads to the supreme confidence, right? And so that's actually power. Because what it is essentially saying that, hey, I know exactly what I'm doing. I've not figured out any holes in my arguments, and I'm being humble about it. I'm not going to run over you because I just think it is right. I just know that it is right? So it's humble, but it's not arrogant. And so this is the second one. Let's go to the third one. What matters is not the size of your authority. It's your influence and ownership. The influence word again. And what we mean by this is, lots of times in the corporate world, which, I've done a bunch of, what you would see is, you would see people trying to do or build empires. Hey, the size of my organization, number of people who report to me, and the number of people who report to them, and then. So the entire size of my organization, I have thousands of people. I don't, but I'm just saying that I have thousands of people who report to me and are in my organization structure. Is usually what is the size of the authority. That's what I mean. But what I have found is you can actually have everybody in the company working for you. They just don't know it. That is the essence of influence. The whole notion that I've been able to, on the basis of mutual respect and trust, and just being completely, supremely confident about what I know and what I'm trying to convey, is the influence. And I'll talk about ownership also. Ownership is actually a very interesting word. It's not that, hey, I feel so good because I own this project or program or anything like that. It's more about being holistic in the thinking and looking at end to end and saying that maybe I'm a piece of the puzzle and I'm just doing a piece of it and saying that I do this work alone. But it's much like, the guys in the second row who came and talked to me about the rocketry. Yes, you folks are doing a piece of the entire, the 33 people, what they are doing. But it's also making sure that you are a very essential component of the value chain, right? So looking ahead, looking around the corner and saying that if I do things a certain way, it's not going to be fully good for the rest of the overall ecosystem, is what that ownership is. I own what I'm doing, but I also own beyond what I'm doing. So I fully respect and trust that somebody else is going to do it, but I still have to look around the corner to say that maybe there are things that they don't know about that I have to bring to the fore. So that's where the influence and ownership is. It is not the size of what your organization, and this is a very important aspect which I found is important, because not in terms of how others think about it, because that doesn't matter. It's how you think of yourself. Okay, but yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
But they're not entirely mutually exclusive, right? There is an interesting interplay between all three factors that you mentioned. Like when you have influence and ownership, authority sometimes comes along, or when you have authority, it's easier to kind of influence. I mean, not necessarily always, but there is some sort of overlap between all three factors.
Surely, so what I was trying to squarely address, so it is not a democracy, right, always, right? So obviously I have an organization, I try to say that, hey, this is the way I'd like to run my organization, and, but I don't go out there, number one, and say that this is the only way you'll do it. Because you have to be able to listen and take ideas in. And it is definitely not the size of your organization, right? If I have 1,000 people, the other person has 2,000 people, it doesn't matter. all those people work for me too. That's how you should start to think. Not from a HR or organization or, take it home, right? It's not like your life partner, it's the influence part that is concerned out there in that situation. And it's not the size of, okay, I'm doing 10 things and you're doing 5 things or anything like that. So those are the kinds of nuances that come to play. The key word is always influence. You have to be able to influence the person you respect and trust to do what they do, so the entire value chain is, that makes sense, right? And ownership is important because not everybody, even I don't know everything that I don't know. I don't know what I don't know, period. There's nothing, everything about it. But the point is, I should expand my thinking to look around the corner and say, this is what I need to be doing, right? So that's what this is. Next one. This also is similar to what I said, is the size of the authority. You're only competing with yourself. You are not competing against this other set of people who are doing things which are similar to you. The rocketry guys, you're competing with yourself. You're not competing with the other teams. And you might find it difficult to absorb that because that is, you're saying, yeah, I'm competing with those guys. But the point is, it is something that you have put as a challenge to yourselves. And the fact is that they may be doing the same thing or similar things and you're trying to be innovative, all of those things, but you should not be consumed by what they are doing. You should be consumed by what you're doing. And that's a very, very key principle too. So these are all areas because, even as, I've found, I used to, right? I learned it the hard way that I used to say, oh, that guy's got a promotion. Why didn't I get one? Or, that guy, and this is earlier, right? Oh, he has an A, I don't have an A, what is that? And oh my God, and that consumes you, right? Because that's natural, we are all human. But the moment you start to say, no, why am I competing with that person? I don't care what he thinks or she thinks or anything like that. I'm actually making sure I can be the best I can. And that is a very, very key turn because after that, it's amazing. I do feel powerful, right? You do feel, contented. You do feel that I'm doing the best I can. And there's nothing else that can prevent me from doing better than the best I can too. But I'm not doing it for that person. I'm doing it for me, right? And that's a very important key thing, which is similar to the size of authority. Yeah.
So the other side of that is you also need to know what's happening in the industry, right?
Absolutely.
So that part goes without saying, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah, the IQ part is never, this is not IQ at all, right? So you got to say, okay, I got to put in the right kinds of technologies. I got to actually see what else is going on around me and do the best I can to find out more about it. I can innovate more and all of those things. But that innovation is not to get over the other guy or girl, right? It's to be better myself, yeah.
By the fact of competing with yourself, we can sometimes get consumed by pseudo-confidence, right? I'm doing my best. But in fact, you have better qualities than presently what you think as the best.
That's an aspect of what is better than the best, right? What is better than what I think. I think that aspect of it you have to constantly improve, right? That's the IQ part, really, right? You got to say, what do I consider as the best? Can something be better than it? Because there are going to be aspects and attributes and features that are going to be adding to what you think is the best that's going to make it better, right? So it's pseudo-confidence, maybe. But the point is, you have to tell yourself that, yes, I have done my research. That's where it comes to the prior things that I talked about. Be supremely confident about what you know, right? There are things that you don't know, but within your sphere of what your knowledge is, it is absolutely the case that you have to do your homework and say that this is when you say this is the best I can do, this is the best I can do. If you have not done all your homework, then there is still some things out there that you have not done, right? So, does it make sense for you? Yeah. Okay. All right. So, but the key word then is also that do not be consumed, right, by competing with those other guys or gals, right? So it's more about you're competing with yourself. Okay. This is also very important. Success is all about managing expectations. And it could be a very high bar that somebody sets, because obviously I'm part of a value chain. I'm part of this entire rocketry unit. Other folks have all similar examples as well. But it's managing expectations. So I'm delivering to somebody, right? And that somebody, I have to make sure that there are expectations in terms of scope, how long it's going to take, what is the budget around it, those kinds of things. These are typical attributes that you said. But it is always, nobody is going to say, again, I'm not being completely truthful here. Nobody's going to say, oh, that's too little scope, or that's too much money, or that's too much time. It's always an aspect of, because they're also having themselves being part of a value chain to somebody else. They're delivering to somebody else, right? So that's where it comes down to set your expectations about what you can deliver to them. And they have a certain aspect of what those expectations are going to do to their own expectations that they're setting with somebody else, right? So that is where it comes down to figure out the stakeholders' needs versus the wants. So the nice to haves is the wants typically. But needs this is absolutely basic to what that person themselves is responsible for, right? And so this is around, again, the value chain. We talk about trust and respect and all of that. One aspect of it is around expectations, right? So I typically, when I manage something in my own organization, we say, okay, hey, there is a month left to a deadline that we've put down. And we try not to set artificial deadlines. It's very difficult, right? We say, well, let's be agile, let's just do what it is in terms of the scope of what the size of the team is, and this is what I can do. It doesn't work that way, right? Because there are deadlines for when you have to finish certain pieces of work. It isn't as if I'll just take the people I have and do what I can with them. So when you set that and you have to backtrack and say, okay, this is when I need something delivered. If it's a month away and you come back to me and ask for a month extra, that's okay. If it's a month away and you ask for me, you say that, okay, I can't deliver within this month, I want 3 more months. That is not setting expectations right. Because obviously you didn't plan right, I didn't plan right. And so typically it's not even a month away, right? It's a week away and they say, oh, we can't do this, we need 3 more months. And that's bad. That's where we got to get ourselves straightened out. I mean, it takes time. So, initially we say we might have estimated it a certain way. So, but the point is, you got to say, that is where I need to set my expectations so that if there's a certain period of time, then I need to say I can only extend by a month. If there is a week left, I can only extend by a week. You got to keep recalibrating yourself. So that's managing up sideways with peers, of course, with your team reporting to you, team other parts of not even, directly reporting to you. We have to be visible and with integrity always. That's where the transparency comes in. You cannot lie, of course. That's the integrity part, right? If you fail at worst, it's fine. It's mostly fine as long as you recover. And people talk about it as fail fast and all that, but that's part of the expectation setting. Saying that, okay, I'm going to do this as a trial balloon. I'm going to try this out. And it may be that part of the expectations is, no, you can't try it out. You have to deliver perfectly, fine the first time around. And that's where it becomes a negotiation. Important thing is, you can negotiate even when you're in a hole. What does that mean? So I can give you an example, right? And this is all part of the value chain conversation, right? I used to be part of a little company, and we were supposed to deliver certain products to some financial services institutions, and we hadn't delivered, right? So and we hadn't delivered over time, and so we were supposed to deliver this particular product. And so here we have not delivered, we are paying penalties because we have not delivered. And you would think that, okay, you're negotiating from inside a hole. And whatever the customer is going to ask for, you have to deliver what they ask for. Not necessarily. And that's where the negotiation also comes in. You would say that, okay, hey customer, yes, we are in a hole. You have not delivered to your next set of partners, but let's negotiate that and say that, okay, let's make sure you can provide some more of that part of your value chain to your customer. And so what is that minimal part? And so let's make sure that I can deliver you that minimal part in with fantastic quality so that you can translate that and send it over. And then the next piece, I'll come along and give you in certain periods of. So in our case, what we did was we said, okay, we are developing software. We will not deliver it. We will deliver it starting this month. And then you have exactly 5 days in which to pick the 5 top critical bugs. And then we'll fix it and we'll deliver it to you in the next release, which comes a month later. And so you get 5 critical bugs. It's not all critical bugs, right? Pick your most important critical bugs, and that's what we'll fix. And that was negotiation. The customer could have easily said, forget it. I want everything fixed and I want to deliver it right away and so on and so forth. But that's where you got to prioritize. And so that's the game of negotiation. So success, again, it comes down to managing expectations. Whether I'm delivering the whole thing, whether I'm delivering a piece, whatever it is, but set the expectations properly in terms of scope, budget, time, and deliver to them. And that's what gains you that mutual respect and trust. And that's the credibility that we always gain with it. Okay? Keep learning, of course, right? I personally think there is no such thing as irrelevant knowledge. You might say, I spent, X period of time, a few weeks studying about something. It's a waste of time. Hindsight, of course, right? Later you say, why did I do that? I just think that everything that we learned from, kindergarten is equally applicable as the last thing that you learned. Because it just builds on itself. That is your experience. This is who you are, right? And the important thing, though, is ground yourself in facts. That is a difficult thing by itself, right? Because facts can change, right? As we know, because what used to be, the world was probably flat to certain people at certain periods of time. That is a fact at that time. Then the world became round. That is a fact then, right? We think the world is round, yes? How many of you think that? But there are different aspects of what we learn at every time, everything in our life is actually an evolution, right? But what you might say is that, okay, based on the fact today, I'm going to make a certain decision. And you're perfectly right in doing that. Because things could change, and then what you made as a decision may be wrong. But hey, I made my decision based on that set of facts. So that's the important thing that we need to ground ourselves in, saying that these are the facts. This is how I can, make sure that I'm not going after something bogus. But the learning part is constant, right? I feel that that's as much part of my experience, my knowledge as anything else. So I stand steadfast in there's no such thing as wasted learning, right? Try to be prioritized around what you learn. But on the other hand, nothing you ever learn is waste, right? So, okay. And then this last one, which I'll show up here for now, is communicate. Being transparent and talking to all your stakeholders and getting it out there is most important. Because it's not only stakeholders, right? We have teams, for instance, what we find is we're going through this cloud program. I didn't say it, Kaviraj said it. We're going through this cloud program. And what we find is we are not only changing and saying that, hey, we're moving applications into the cloud, we are also changing the way in which we work. Because you can't take old process and it says that, okay, I'm going to assume hardware takes X number of weeks to come and apply it to new, access in the cloud because you have all of the infrastructure there right away, right? Everybody has worked with the cloud, as an example, yeah? I'm sure, right? So in some sense, we work with the cloud every day. If you're using email, it's in the cloud, right? Always. But the whole notion of communicating, because we got to be making sure as leaders, and I say that every one of us is a leader. It's not as if you got to have a high-sounding title to say you're a leader. Every one of us is a leader because we have people we work with. We got to influence them, lead them down certain paths. And so we got to say, what am I thinking? What am I going to ask you to do? What am I expecting from you? All of that is communication. So sometimes what we feel in our organization, Delta, in prior organizations and all of that there is this frozen middle. So I might communicate to people who work for me and then they might communicate to people who work for them. But then somehow, has anybody played the game telephone? Right? Where, hey, I tell somebody something in their ear and then they take what they heard or they take what they think they heard and they say and then by the time that word, you say something and then it goes around and comes around, it's fun, right? It's a fun game because by the time it comes around, it's completely different. And so the same thing happens in corporate culture, it happens at home, right? Something I said, my wife suddenly does not know what I said, right? But the point is, we have to keep communicating and making sure that what let's say, I communicated is being transferred in with same kind of fidelity, no loss of communication if we can, right? But this communication piece is an important component of anything that we do. Anybody who disagrees, right? So, I have a few principles, smaller font. That's why I all of these we had in the prior slides, right? So the 7 kind of principles: mutual trust, respect, we did. Supremely confident. Not the size of your authority, but your influence and ownership. You're only competing with yourself. Success is all about managing expectations. Keep learning and communicate. Communicate. 3s, right? So, what has this got to do with being powerful, right? So what I said I would do is, I got to make and package it up in such a way that it's easy to remember, because I forget things all the time, right? And so it's very easy to say that, okay, you gave me 7 things, how can I remember these? So the typical thing is to say, how do you become powerful, right? It's easy. That's a P. Powerful. Partnership and teamwork. That's one of the things we talked about. And so what this is going to give you is a framework for reminding yourself for what being powerful is. Reminding ourselves that working with people is the most important thing. And how do you make yourself powerful? Feel confident, but also convey and exude the same self-confidence and convey to others is what powerful is all about. Right? Partnership and teamwork is for the P of powerful. I could have put alternatives as passionate, positive, problem solver, punctual. Any of those are good attributes. For me, P is partnership and teamwork. Anybody who feels that there's no wrong answer here, right? Anybody who feels that passionate is better? You think passionate is better than partnership? Ask your team members, but anyway.
I think it's inclusive. If you're passionate about the work you do, I think it will exactly reflect in the teamwork.
Yeah. So that's good. No, I think the P could be passionate for you. And there was a comment here.
I'm just saying it's 2 different things. Both are good qualities.
Yeah. But my thing is, let's pick let's prioritize and say what my powerful is going to be, right? And in the end, it's going to be my mantra, right? What I go out with and say, this is how I'm going to tackle the world. So my P is partnership and teamwork. Clearly, the partnership we talked about, the teamwork we talked about, most of the things that you can do, when I say mutual respect and trust, comes with the team, right? But it doesn't exclude you. I got to have trust for myself and trust with, and respect with myself as well. To say that, yes, I trust myself to do the job and I respect myself. Maybe to your point earlier, am I confident and am I trusting myself and respecting myself that I've cleared out any things that I don't know? Or how could I be better? Right? So that's where I think it all comes together. So here are alternatives: partnership and teamwork. What does O stand for? Yeah, go ahead.
Problem solver can be better, right? Because then the team would have to trust on you more.
Problem solver by itself is not, it's not going to, of course you want to solve problems, but you don't want to go in the corner and solve the problems without bringing the team in. Maybe, in a certain way, they could help you solve the problem faster. Is how it works in teams, right? So, again, there's no wrong answer. I just think that partnership and teamwork brings all of it together for me, right? You could be a problem solver too. Okay? Yeah. Fair enough. Ownership. O is ownership. Power. P-O, partnership, teamwork, ownership. So this is where I talked about looking around corners, making sure that I do and I own what I'm working on. And there's a whole notion of what is called systems thinking. Anybody know what systems thinking is? What is it?
Basically, look at it from the way how you want the system to behave and the needs, that wants, those kind of things.
Yeah, and it's holistic, right? It's not a component, it's the entire thing. This is where ownership means I look at it from an overall holistic perspective and not only in my little piece of what I'm supposed to be doing. And that's where I'm part of a bigger value chain and all of that, right? So it could be outcome-oriented or it could be outcome-oriented, opportunistic, optimistic. All of them are good qualities. I stick with ownership, right? The W, I cheated a little bit, right? We talked about humility. You can work hard, you can work smart, but work humble is a very, very important aspect of it. So you cannot afford to be arrogant in any of your dealings with people. In the end, that's where the team breaks down. If you're going to, pound your fist on the table, be absolute jerk, right? The point is you have to say, okay, I'm part of an ecosystem, I'm doing my job, I may be the most brilliant person here, right? But I recognize that there are many things I don't know. I don't even know how brilliant the next person is. As we all know, right? People are great in certain things that you've seen them do. But at the same time, you've not seen them do everything, right? So there are going to be hidden talents everywhere. But the point is, you got to work humble, saying that, again, I'm going to do the best I can, do the problem solving, do all of that. But I'm humble enough to say that I recognize my limitations, I recognize my limits, and I'm humble about it. Yeah, feel good about it, but humble, right? E for me, so POWE, right? E is an entrepreneur, and that's interesting because you didn't see me using the word elsewhere. What an entrepreneur is, we just got treated to a fantastic display of things in the incubation. What's it called? IITM Incubation Research Park, an incubation lab? Incubation Center. 291 companies that have come through it. Every one of those people who came through there is an entrepreneur. Entrepreneur takes risks, says that, okay, I'm going to go make foray into something that people have not done before. Obviously, they're not trying to do the same thing, but also trying to make a business out of it, making sure that they are going to produce products that people will, quote unquote, buy. Because that's what is, you might have heard of these things called S curves, right? Where, you're at a certain point right now, hey, we are continue going up and, more mainstream certain products. But you have to have a disruption sometimes. There are many, many examples of disruptions we talk about today. Pick your Uber, pick your Airbnb. I mean, these are standard examples. Pick Apple, right? Apple is another great example of constant disruptor. Pick our friend Elon Musk, right? Great disruptor in crazy kinds of ways. But the point is, there is a disruption to it that the entrepreneur brings. You have to be that, right? You cannot say that, oh, it's too much of a risk, I'm not going to take it, and all of that. But clearly, you're also trying to be prudent about it and not take crazy risks that you're going to put everybody in jeopardy. So that risk is going to be very measured, deliberate, and we had in the last couple of slides that you could fail, but you could fail fast, right? And so the whole notion is an entrepreneur, have that entrepreneurial spirit in you in anything. It's not just, okay, I'm trying to create a new business. Every act of what we do allows us to be an entrepreneur, right? We could go this way or that way at any point of time. And so that's where I see that's what, you got to say, I'm going to take a limited risk or a deliberate risk and get it out there. E could be emotional control, enthusiastic, enjoy what you do. All of them are great. You got to enjoy what you do, of course, but be an entrepreneur, okay? R is resilient. Yes, you had a question. Say it again. How to have emotional control? Oh my God, that's a very big question, right? I wish I could say everybody has emotional control. But the thing is, it comes down to this, right? And this is where I think being powerful, as long as you know that you covered the bases on all of these principles, right? The best way is to look at what upsets you typically. And it's not like I don't get upset. I do get upset too. But do you have outbursts resulting from it? Versus saying that, okay, this happened, and I'm going to go about my job, cleaning it up and, going to the next thing. Because it's not helpful for us to look at what happened because you didn't do a certain thing certain way. Or somebody else could have, upset you. But say that, okay, what do you do going forward? I'll tell you, I did a very stupid thing in the last couple of weeks, right? My wife is out here in Coimbatore and I was trying to, recreate the wonderful yogurt she had created before she left, right? So what do? You heat up milk in a vessel, and then while it's wait for it to cool down a little bit. While it's still warm, take a piece of the yogurt and transfer it. So here I am, and before many years ago, they used to make glass vessels called Pyrex, which you could put on a stovetop. And I've done that before. I've never put it on a stovetop. I realized I've put it into a microwave. So here. So here so these days you don't have glass vessels that you can put on stovetops, most likely. So I put a whole half a gallon of milk, put it on a stovetop, and a few minutes later, the whole thing shatters. It just completely, flies out. Thankfully, I was not standing near it, but it just shatters. And I'm thinking, I don't know what to do because there's glass pieces all over the place. The milk has just spilled out all over the place. And this is like full milk, so you can imagine how tough it is to clean up. And so I spent the next 2 hours cleaning it up, right? And what could I do? Just be mad at myself? I thought that was a clear test of my getting emotionally controlled, right? So that's just a stupid example I'm giving you, but if you look at it, every emotional outburst is very similar to that, right? Because somebody has done something which is very stupid in your eyes, and in this case, I had done the stupid thing, but I say, okay, what do I have to do? I can't do anything but be mad at myself, and I've created enough damage here. I just have to go about and clean the glass and make sure nobody else gets hurt. And it's very difficult to clean milk. Have you ever done that, right? So anyway, sorry for the stupid story, but hopefully it gives you some sense of what emotional control is about. It's going to be the highlight of our talk, I think. Okay, yeah. So let's move on to R, resilient. What is resilient? It's being able to be able to come back from whatever happened. And I think the biggest example of resilience is us, right? In terms of, we came through COVID, right? COVID was the mega failure that happened in you could call it failure, it was call it disaster, you call it, you put your superlative word for what, really bad thing can happen to us. I'll give you another angle to it, and we all came out of it. I know we have, we've had many tragedies amongst many people. Maybe some of you have relatives or friends you knew who suffered really badly. But obviously, we all had to come out of it, right? And here we are again, the economy is running again, and so on and so forth. I'll give you a very clear example, Delta Airlines. There was an existential crisis for all airlines. The airline industry had its bottom fallout. At some point of time, we were losing 100 million at the lowest point, of course. Usually we are used to being one of the bigger airlines. We have about, let's say, at the height in 2019, we had 725,000 people board our planes in a single day, right? 725,000 people. During the height of COVID, or the depth of COVID, if you will, we had about a few thousand. 725,000 to a few thousand. Right now, it's still not recovered. It's still about, let's say, close to 590, 600,000 or so. So we still have a long ways to go. But then the bottom fell out. We were losing $100 million a day, believe it or not. And if you look at it, $100 million a day is, in a month, is $3 billion, right? And what we had, as part of, in our coffers, so to say, was just about that. So we had to scramble. And then, but it's not about technology, it's not the process, it's not the money, it's the people. And, one of the things that Anirban will stress is, you got to be powerful, but an element of culture is very, very important. So the airline industry, again, I'm not picking the airline industry, but we are now part of it. I've been in other industries too. Financial services had its, really bad situation in 2008, but, when the markets collapsed, right? We've had, occasional dips, even in the last few weeks. But the airline industry was unique in it had 9/11, right? And so people are not flying during that time. Airline industry also had bankruptcies. All of the airlines went bankrupt in one way or the other. Delta Airlines went bankrupt in 2007. We went through a merger, right? And so there's a lot of change. It's all about change management. And then we had COVID, right? In between, we've had all kinds of other craziness. And every day there are thunderstorms in Atlanta and Minneapolis and all that. We don't fly to India, unfortunately. We will start doing that soon, but hopefully, right? So I can take a Delta flight when I come here rather than go to Paris on a Delta flight and take Air France or something. But the point is, resilience is all about bringing the company back, retaining the people. We could have had many people just leave, but people just stayed on and said that we're going to see ourselves out of this craziness. And so that's one huge form of resilience. The only industry, I think, which was worse off than the airline industry was the passenger cruise lines, ships, right? Because they are typically always worried about, they are floating hospitals, because you get on the cruise ship, then sometimes they have, the entire ship with some disease or another. And obviously you can't get on with COVID, right? Because that will just spread. So, but the point is, they went through a tough time, really. That's called resilience, right? All of us go through tough times. There are small tough times, big tough times, but again, I wouldn't replace resilience with any of these others, even though they look pretty good. Reinvent yourself is good too, right? So, okay. The F in powerful, right? We did power. So let me just remind, the P is partnership and teamwork. O is ownership. W is work humble. E is entrepreneur. R is resilient. F is, we talked about facts. So the notion of fact-based decisions. You have to make your decision based on fact. So there are always people who would say that, oh, I don't know, why did you make this decision? And, I think I saw some other piece of information there, right? You have to make sure that that other piece of information is correct. Is it a fact, right? There's always hearsay, there's always gossip. And the other principle I typically follow, so you have to make your decision based on fact, but facts could change, right? As we said, the world used to be flat for somebody. They thought that is the fact, right? But the other corollary maybe is that you could be wrong. You could be wrong, right? Based on what you thought was the actual facts and what you heard, and because obviously we were working in a team, somebody gave you the wrong information. But you should never be in doubt. Because you made a decision based on certain things that you got. The point though is that if you realize that the facts have changed, then you should sort of revise and there's nothing wrong about revising what you did, right? But if you say, oh, I made this decision, was I right? Then that'll just be in the way of progress. So that's another thing that I've learned the tough way, okay? Yes?
What's the difference between ownership and responsibility? You included one and not included one. Yes.
Yeah?
In the previous slides, you did not include the responsibility.
Ownership is responsibility. Ownership is accountability, responsibility. Okay, so there is a usual notion of, you've probably dealt with RACI diagrams. Has anybody else heard of RACI? RACI? Yeah? R is responsible, accountable, A is accountable, C is consult, and I is inform. When we typically have a set of stakeholders, and let's say you're working on a report, then, the person who is responsible for producing the report is the person who's doing the work. That's the R. A is accountable. As in, maybe you're part of a team, the team leader is supposed to be producing that report, but on the other hand, you are the person doing the work. So that person is A, right? The consult is where, hey, there are other people who you could consult with. You're not the person, you are still the person producing the report. You consult with somebody else to get some more information, facts, and so on and so forth. That's fine, that's consult. And include them in the mix. But still, the report is yours, the person accountable is your team leader. And I stands for inform. Meaning, okay, I'll inform you that, I'll give you a copy of the report at some point of time. So those are the different roles. In a certain way, ownership is all of them. Right? So, okay. Facts-based decision, okay. I cheated a little bit. U for powerful is uphold values. Be as much with integrity as possible. Don't go down a path of being false about something and uttering lies to your team for whatever crazy reasons, right? There are actually, one of the things that I wanted to also highlight is urgency. I have not included urgency in my entire set of being powerful. Because really urgency is all about setting expectations, it's the ownership, all of that, right? Because typically, when you go into corporate kinds of cultures, or even when you're doing rocketry or, in school, or you have a deadline, the urgency has to be, combated, or you got to get over what is the notion of urgency by planning right. So it's not as if, hey, I came up with this, I have a week to go, I need a more month. No, not all that, because we didn't plan right. That's what it comes down to. It's but it's still, under no circumstance should I let go of integrity. And it's not as if I'm going to cheat the next person and feel happy about it. That's not how it works, right? Because, the truth will come out at some point of time, and that's not good, right? Okay, L, big cheat here. L, I said I'm going to do 3 of them. So learn constantly. I talked about it before. The part about listen well, you would hear all the time. I said communicate in the previous one, but communication is not about just blabbing, right? It's not taking and saying, and everybody gives the example of how you have 2 ears and 1 mouth and all of those wonderful things. But you have to listen. You have to listen actively. You have to say, what is that other person saying, and how have I absorbed that into what I'm supposed to be talking about? And so that's the listen well. It applies for every aspect of your life. And whether in corporate culture, it's very important in corporate culture that you listen to your boss and listen to the people you respect and trust. At home, you listen to your parents, you listen to your spouse, whoever it is, right? Listen to your children. You got to be making sure that all of them are at the right level of interaction with you. And then the other L is leadership. As I said, every one of us is a leader. And we have to absolutely say, I'm a leader, I'm going to take this into my own hands. Make sure I'm responsible, I'm owning the outcome. And that's the bottom line. So powerful to me is partnership and teamwork, ownership, work humble, entrepreneur, resilient, fact-based decisions, uphold values, and learn, listen, and be a leader. The reason I put this up like this is because I use it myself. I forget all the time, right? Because you get caught up in everything that you're doing day in and day out. And I forget, hey, I need to keep bringing this. And what does this give me? It gives me the confidence to be working with people, to believe in them, trust them, respect them. But at the same time, also make sure that I'm delivering whatever outcomes I was supposed to deliver. So this is what makes me powerful. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. Okay. So I think, how much more? We are almost out of time, is it? Didn't give you time for questions, but I do want to bring Anirban up so he can talk about his experiences. So we feel that we are in a powerful company ourselves at Delta, right? And we just want to say that it's amazing that some of these kinds of concepts can be absorbed into the culture. Everybody talks about what is the culture of a company. I was just mentioning to you that people stayed. Our attrition rate is less than 5%, right? People leaving is less than 5%. That's very, very impressive. It's not unheard of in any industry, right? And why? People just believe in the company. And that's what, Anirban, you can talk about why powerful is applicable there too.
Thank you so much, KK, for your inspiring words. So, I'll just begin with, with an open question to the audience. Can anyone help me define the word culture? I'm not talking about something which we heard KK uttering many times, corporate culture. I'm just going a step back. Can anyone, it's difficult to define, but at least give me some sense or some idea of what culture could mean. Anyone? Okay. Okay. Okay, so you said something that keeps getting repeated. You said values. Okay. Yes.
Systematic way of living and working in an environment.
Systematic way of living and working in an environment. Okay. Okay, so I've got 4 definitions so far, and all these 4 definitions are kind of, amorphous, right? It's not really leading on to a very well-defined definition of culture, right? And that is because the word culture itself is according to according to Raymond Williams, he's one of the better known English literary critics. He says that the word culture is one of the top 3 or 4 most complicated words in the English language. Now, a way to understand any word could be to try to understand what is the opposite of it, or what is the other of it. Opposite is generally in terms of adjectives, since culture is a noun. So let's try to define what could be the opposite of culture, right? So there are multiple ways, since the word culture doesn't have any fixed definition. Its meaning has changed over time. So we have all heard of this thing called nature culture divide, right? Everyone, when we are born into nature, and in the first few years or first decade or so in our lives, we get imbibed into a certain culture. So that is one way of defining culture. The other way could be culture. The other of culture is, let's say, barbarianism, right? We ask any student of archaeology, they would always say that we had a lot of Neolithic cultures, a lot of Stone Age culture. So culture is somewhat related to civilization, right? Something which is opposed to a more rustic way of living, which typically they call as barbarianism. So long story short, culture is not a very it's a very amorphous concept, right? And when we talk about corporate culture, right, things become even more amorphous. So and culture is a word which is much used and much abused when it comes to management jargon. So what would corporate culture mean? Does it mean the kind of HR policies that are there in terms of your work timings? Does it mean the typical team size, right? Or does it mean the number of times they take you to an offsite, right? The number of times they take you to Goa in a certain year. So culture could mean all of these things, right? But the way I have come to understand culture, right, in my 10 years of work experience, of course I'm much junior to KK, but in my work tenure, the way I have come to understand culture, of course, I mean, I'm not just saying that this is the only way to look at culture. There are multiple competing ways, but I would like to draw your attention to 2 Marxian concepts, right? I won't say Marxist concepts, because Marxist, the word has certain political and historical connotations. 2 Marxian concepts, right? So one is alienation and the other is commodification, right? So alienation, as you all know, right? So alienation is basically a relationship of relationlessness, right? So any work that you do, unless you are an artist who is creating that perfect masterpiece for yourself, unless you are Leonardo da Vinci, it is very difficult to be totally non-alienated from your work. Any work that you do will involve some level of alienation. The reason being, we work for someone else, right? We work for a company. Of course, we are in control of our teams, we are in control of the work that we do, but as entry level, or let's say as fresh graduates who get into your companies right out of college, a lot of work that lands onto you might not be in full control of that work, right? So you just got a piece of work, your boss has given, somebody has given that work to your boss, so you might not feel in total control of the kind of work that you're doing. So alienation is one thing which is an unfortunate reality of any work that we do. The second is commodification, right? Commodity, we all understand. People are sort of replaceable, right? We are dispensable. So where I'm coming to is, a good workplace, a workplace which has good culture, is that which amounts to the least amount of alienation and least amount of commodification. I know both these words have a negative connotation, but whichever workplace minimizes these two aspects, you can term it as a good workplace, right? And as a result, you can call that place to be one with a good work culture. So, and now coming back to DTH, right, which I represent. So, we started off a couple of years ago. As KK said, DTH is one of the three, IT development centers that we have across the world. DTH is located in Bangalore. I was one of the, one of the founding employees there in DTH. Now, I spoke about alienation and commodification, right? Now, how that translates into my own experience in at DTH over the last 2 years, right, is again I would connect to what KK just mentioned about being powerful. So I personally, if you look at my story, my experience at DTH, it has been one of empowerment. So I feel totally empowered in the work that I do here. By the way, I lead the operations at DTH, right? So I take care of the entire office, the IT infra, the various vendor relationships that we have here. And I'm, overall responsible for ensuring that this center adheres to the growth plans that we have, right? So I think, long story short, culture, boils down into how much empowered you feel. Of course, there will always be work that you are not totally in control of, right? But, if you feel empowered, right, that itself, takes away a lot of anxiety and a lot of frustrations that might very easily, make its way into your working life. So, with that, I would, pass it back to KK.
Thanks much, Anirban. So I think overall, what we wanted to convey was also that you got to yourself feel empowered, feel powerful, but also the workplace can contribute to making that happen, right? So the point is, it's a triumvirate, but in the end, it's all the people, right? So that's our story. We're going to stick to this. I think we have a couple of more slides which I won't necessarily go through, right? So we talked about, there are lots of great things about Delta Airlines, 6th best employer in the world. We'll start to fly to India soon. Anybody heard about parallel reality? It's a cool technology. I say it's not the technology, but that is cool technology. So you should go read up on it, where, you can actually, in Detroit, they have it installed in there's a massive, screen where you actually can, take your boarding pass and you can get it scanned. And what really happens is there's a camera above which treats you like a blob. And so it knows that you're the person who got it scanned. So it'll update on the screen, where is your gate? So it'll tell you, hey, the gate is 5 minutes this way, or to another person who's going that way. But the amazing part of the technology is this person could be standing right next to you and they're looking at the same display. So it's just the pixels that are going to be different for the different people viewing in a different angle. And it's just amazing, right? So obviously there's a concept of that person scanned their boarding pass, got blobbed, whatever it is. But it's just incredible technology by itself. So I say it's not technology, but hey, I'm a technologist, right? So, but there are lots of good things about Delta Airlines. So, but just one thing I'll highlight, then we'll sort of close out and ask for more questions. So safety first is always true in any airline. But look at the standard kinds of things are the bottom three. Be the airline of choice. We engage in customer experience a lot. We want people to be feeling that they are going on the airline of the choice. We do a lot of things to make sure we recognize the good customers. We want to run the industry's best operations. We want take off on time, arrive on time, don't lose your bags, all of those, right? Those are all, table stakes, but we have the best, numbers in the industry. And then obviously we have to be a profitable enterprise. But these three are actually lower than care for our people and live by our values. So obviously, work for a company like that. I'm not saying work for Delta Airlines, but work for a company like that is very, very important. And I think we're done with that. But I will share this deck. There are lots of I have some things about books that I've actually looked at over the times. And so there's a very interesting book called what got you here won't get you there. So clearly, you everybody here is extremely good at what you do. That's why you're here, right? You're all fantastic IQ. You may have fantastic EQ already, emotional quotient. But the point is, you should say that, okay, as an example, some of your undergrads, what got me into IIT is not necessarily enough to get me to the next level or get me there. And typically, I'll be very frank about this, right? I was a topper at school, but I come here and see, whoa, what happened to my class here? So you get without being swearing about it, you get your rear end kicked hard. So we learn very fast that, not to all of you, but some of you maybe. But anyway, there's a whole notion of that. There's a notion of nice guys can get the corner office, which is sort of more for a corporate life. But again, it's not pounding the fist and being a jerk at whatever you do. It's trust and mutual respect and trust. Negotiation. There's one very interesting book called Never Split the Difference, and this is for hostage negotiation. So you might say that, hey, when you go outside and you get an auto and it's not an auto anymore, you don't negotiate anymore, but maybe you do get an auto and you're telling him, I'll give you only $50 instead of the $100 he's asking, and that's all part of the negotiation. So that's a compromise, right? You're trying to get to halfway or something like that, or something that he's comfortable with and you're comfortable with. The interesting aspect of a hostage negotiation is this, right? He says never split the difference, because you want to get all the hostages out of there. There's no compromise, really. And so that's another interesting way of looking at negotiation. So again, we are negotiating every day of our lives, right? Again, with everybody that you're talking to, whether it be older or younger, I have to negotiate with my daughters all the time. So on and so forth, right? So anyway, we'll share these slides. Thank you, Anirban, for adding to what we just pulled together. Questions? I know we're way past our time, but any one question, two questions, last ones? Any thoughts? Yes.
This is in relation to aviation industry in general. So why is it I've heard that it's extremely hard to enter the aviation industry as a new company. Is it because of the hardware and the huge planes required, or is it because of customers' trust and all that?
It's a combination, right? Clearly, it's first of all, you hit upon it the first time around, right? These planes cost billions of dollars, right? So you have to have somebody with very, very deep pockets who's bringing you to the fore. So there's a certain barrier to entry for that. But it's like any other retail business that needs good customer service, because in the end, running a cheap airline, its operations are very, very important. So people pay attention to whether you take off, and as I said, right, safety is number one. You cannot have an operation that is shoddy, and you can't have people falling out of the sky, right? So no, we don't want that, or planes. So it's a difficult set of standards that you have to hold yourself up to, and it's not as if, oh, my car is leaking oil or something like that, and I'll go. It's not hardly that, right? You cannot do that, right? So these planes have to be in ship shape. So it's a tough operation from that perspective. The customer experience angle is something that all of us are still learning, right? So we got to say, how do you recognize a customer that actually had a bad experience, had a good experience, and make sure that, because we also call it as a high-tech, high-touch business. High-tech because you are flying in aluminum tubes, which are incredible technology, right? And Boeing and Airbus and all those guys put fantastic technology into it for the billions of dollars that we spend with them. But it's also high touch, and also the IT systems that make them run. But the high touch is, you see so many people as you get to your the flight that you're going to take, and you talk to, because sometimes you might have these days you don't quite book you don't call in to actually book a ticket. You just go online and book these tickets, right? But the point is, you're talking to that person. You're talking to somebody when you go to check in your baggage. You're talking to somebody when you go to check in. Sometimes they may be different people. Then you go to the security check, and that's not necessarily controlled by the airlines, but we can, right? So we can have the appropriate kind of mechanisms to make sure that your stress level is reduced, because we all know that the highest stress is getting through security, number one, and the second piece of stress is standing at a gate and trying to get your bags. So get to the front of the line so you can get your the bags up there in the upper compartment, right? So those are the two pieces of stress. We need to make sure that how can we reduce that stress? So there are high bars for, for instance, Delta does not consider itself the economy class or economy class, yes, but not the cheap airline. Because what we want to say is, if you're willing to pay for getting the right kind of service, and we are very proud of the service that we provide, then it's something that we will go by. I mean, and so essentially we're very proud of the kind of service we provide, even if it's at a higher cost. So these are various aspects, but it starts off with the billions of dollars in planes, and then it's a tough business as well. Okay. Yes.
So we talked about being positive. So as an individual, we can try and practice this concept of being positive. But as an organization, how do we actually inculcate or bring about the concept of empowerment of being powerful?
It's all those things that we talked about, right? All of them, right? It's almost about, it's very important for us to realize that we influence people day in and day out. The kind of what you project as my principles, like the powerful concepts, is what people will start to see in you, and saying that, okay, yeah, I'm not getting upset. I'm saying that I'm supremely confident. I'm trust and respect people. That is it's actually infectious, is how I would say it. So it's your attitude, right? In the end, it comes down to your attitude. Call all of that powerful as your attitude. And I just think that takes a little bit of time. It will take a long time sometimes. But the point is, you have influence. And so, in a certain way, I'm influencing you folks, right? So, you take what you like about it and leave behind what it is. But the point is, all of us learn every day. And the positive approach, positive attitude to it is what, can help us all, right? And, is there a formula for it? No, right? But, and I think you get what I'm saying. Anything else? Yes?
So as entering the Indian market right now, basically speaking of an Indian mindset, people want things cheap in India. Like, it's a developing country, right? So people want things cheap. So, and the principle you're following is, the ticket is not cheap, but we are providing a world-class facility, experience to you. So how are you going to deal with this in India? Because people do sacrifice with the experience for getting things here.
Yeah, I agree that being cheap, maybe inexpensive. And listen, cheap is a very poor word, right? So inexpensive is what Indians like, right? And it's not as if we are entering the Indian market now. I mean, we've been in the Indian market before, and we're re-entering it, right? So in a certain way, the question is this, right? There are different aspects of retail. Forget planes, right? Forget the airline industry. If you go out to buy a shirt, for instance, you see various levels of shirts, right? I can buy something from my corner store. But I can go to, why do people buy shirts from Raymond's or, whoever else, right? Louis Philippe or, first of all, I don't know. I mean, are those more expensive than the one I can buy from the corner store? Probably they are, right? But people want to look good, right? So, it gives them a certain amount of, confidence, self-respect, those kinds of things. And it's what it is. And so, the question is, who do you want to give a higher level of service to, and the straight consumer. So I can tell you this, right? Even in our market, the place where we get the most margin is the corporate market. So if you're part of a company, and and what happens is, a company does not always plan things out, so they end up paying higher prices. You end up paying higher prices on behalf of a company because, hey, I'm booking the ticket for 2 days out. Versus any of us wanting to take a vacation, like, we'll think 6 months ahead and say that, okay, I'm going to book my tickets on a Tuesday because then it's inexpensive. I don't know, some rules of thumb like that. So there are differing, aspects of the client and the customer market. So and it's not only India that wants inexpensive tickets. It's the rest of the world that wants inexpensive tickets. It's just that Delta has preferred to say that, okay, this is the market I want to be in. There are many airlines which give you not even economy tickets. There are some things called basic economy tickets, meaning that that's even worse than you cannot pick your seat. You might get a middle seat all the time. You might get a seat which does not recline. Maybe the seat is broken. I don't know how. But that is basic economy. And you can't, if you go as a family, you can't sit together. And those are all inconveniences. Everybody has a threshold for what the inconvenience is. So that's what we got to deal with, right? So, yes.
Would you describe the leadership style of Delta as laissez-faire, or would you say it's involving the employees quite a bit in decision making and everything?
It's not laissez-faire. No. That's why we got to balance it, right? We got some really great leaders. Ed Bastian, is our CEO. And he's quite vocal. He's not even, he's vocal out in the press, and he comes out and says things and makes a stand about some political things even, right? And so a very well-respected leader, as a CEO. Now, it's not laissez-faire in terms of, obviously, he has a very strong financial background. He was a CFO at some point of time, and he's been with the company forever. Now, the kind of leadership that he exudes, all of us want to emulate, right? Now, you had an aspect of, okay, is it involving the people in some of those decisions? Clearly, he has a notion of what is called a Delta Leadership Committee, which is a certain set of people, and then it sort of extends. The important thing, I think, is that we have a factor called NPS, Net Promoter Score. Everybody aware of that? What Net Promoter Score is? What it is very simple, actually. In the sense that, a scale of 1 to 10. If you have a survey and you say, did you like what this was, right? Whatever it was, did you like what this is? Then you say, if this person ticked 9 and 10, then they are a promoter. Anything else, they're not a promoter. They're actually a detractor. So you say the Net Promoter Score is based on that percentage. And so we do that with customers on a regular basis, right? And we say that, okay, how do you pick Delta? And so there are scores of 70 and stuff like that, which are very tough to attain. Now, believe it or not, during the height of the pandemic, customers said Delta had a score of 70 plus, right? Meaning 70% of the people are saying we are in the 9-10 category, right? Not even 8 or 7 or anything, 9-10. So what we do is we do a similar kind of thing with employees as well. We measure employee NPS and engagement, and we give them a set of questions and say, we do that on a regular basis. So if you say, are employees directly involved in some of the decision making? No. Ed Bastian is not going to ask and say, hey, what about this? But we do take, we try to listen well, let's say. And input from the rest of the company and saying that what are we going to put our strategy around. And one of the things that I think there's a common quote which I don't think Anirban mentioned when he talked all about culture. There's a quote saying, culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? And that is the case, right? If people didn't want to support what the company is doing, they would make themselves very clear that we don't support what the company is doing. So we are, so one way to measure what or have employees provide input into the process is NPS for employees as well, not only for customers. Okay. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
So when you look at the tech companies, tech giants in the US, actually, how overrated is it? Because if you actually look at most of the tech leaders, they all have perhaps whatever they are very difficult and suburban kind of people, like very difficult to work with, right? And so is that like that individual technical brilliance is more important, and you have a lot of IC roles also, individual contributor roles, right? Like which essentially say that your individual brilliance is more important at times. So like the teamwork is overrated? What has been your perception?
I don't think teamwork is overrated at all. It is actually the thing that makes things run. Any of these tech leaders, whether they be jerks or whether they be brilliant or however and it's also sort of, I think, I didn't put it up there, right? You would also realize that most of the time a person's strengths are also their weaknesses because they're so far into their strengths and they believe in it and believe in themselves and I found my strengths are my weakness too, right? And so this is what I would apply to any of these folks who are, tech leaders. They clearly need to be disruptive if they're going to change the game. Look at electric car market, and I won't name these names, but you know who I'm talking about. But the electric car market is incredible, right? It took that many years to even get to a point where or it's going into space and any of those, right? But on the other hand, they are not by themselves doing this, right? It's like, this is where the culture eats strategy for breakfast is directly applicable. Because by themselves, they can only point and say, go in this direction. There are teams that have to move the whole, somebody has to produce in actually quantity at scale what this person may have been as a leader pointing in the direction of, right? So there's no such thing as teamwork is overrated. It's those teams that have to work together and be non-dysfunctional, meaning function as a smoothly humming unit. Because if it's not going to work that way, then there is a better way to do it, and nature will find its way. That's how I see it, right? So I would be surprised if somebody said teamwork is overrated. But you just put that out there.
No, I said because I think if it's industry specific, let's say for example, an IT services industry,
Yeah.
you need a lot of teamwork. But a product development kind of thing, you need individual brilliance to maybe like.
Oh, so this is an important question, right? So there are maybe from even a strategy perspective, there are 3 types of companies which do well in each of their cases, right? So there's a notion of product brilliance, as an example. Apple is an example of a product brilliance company. Again, it's not as if one person came up with it and Steve Jobs and all that, but you need execution right behind it, right? So product-based companies. There's another set of companies from a strategy perspective who could say, yeah, product is good, but I'm going to be operationally excellent. So you could pick Dell as an example because they did the whole supply chain optimization and the fact that at whatever point of time Michael Dell realized that, hey, this is where I'm going to make, even if the margins are low, I'm going to make good products because I'm going to optimize the supply chain. So, and this is where the notion of, on-demand kinds of, you can go and choose which one you want and it comes to you very fast. That's operational excellence. And the third is customer focus. Customer focus, if you look at people from Amazon, they are very customer obsessed. They call them customer obsessed. Or you go to some specialty store. I'm sorry, I don't know about these specialty stores here. But people like, if you've heard of Neiman Marcus in the US, they are, very customer focused. So these are 3 different areas of how you can actually be successful, right? And so in that sense, I feel that, yes, there are different ways of how you can be successful, but it still doesn't mean that there are no teams underneath and you need teams to sort of execute in the direction of what might be the strategy. If that culture is not going to recognize that, yeah, this is a good way to do it, nothing will happen, right? So, yeah. Is there one more? Yeah.
Flight ticket prices are highly volatile, right?
Yes.
Within a hours, the price will change.
Yes.
So, what are the factors that influence this price? And is there any algorithms?
Oh, is there any?
As you are a CTO, you have an idea.
There are algorithms, but clearly the algorithms, yes, customer experience is an important thing for us, but we are a business, right? So you would know it's all based on demand, right? It's and so there's a whole pricing group that actually looks at it and say, and the fact of the matter is, the person sitting right next to you in a similar seat or in the same kind of seat is paying a different number, most likely, right? It's just an act of how I wouldn't say it's auction pricing, but it's an act of aspect of how how much you're willing to pay for it, right? So there are very sophisticated algorithms for doing that pricing. Yeah.
Is there any central authority that suggest prices for all the airlines, or every airline has their own algorithms?
It's typically their own pricing. These prices are set by the airline. When you go to a travel agent, they're having their inventory. So we distribute the inventory. So you can, I know you can book for any flights here in Delta in India, but typically you go to delta.com to book a price, to book a ticket. Or you can go to a travel agent, right? So the travel agent also forms more of a distribution arms, right? It's like inventory, and they maintain some of that inventory. And so they may be able to get you certain prices because they know that some of these prices are volatile, and they'll help with that. But the point is, it's not the same set of algorithms that are, there are pricing groups that actually work, to actually make sure that there's some differentiation in the pricing. Yeah. Hopefully that answers the question. Yeah. Okay. Wow. This has been a one more. We'll take one more.
So you said that Delta has a very great professional service. So as a startup, when Delta was a startup, was it the same ambition? Because it's hard to pitch to the market that yes, we are a startup and we don't really have a great experience providing the professional service.
So I think I lost part of your question along the way. Can you just repeat it? I know you spent some time talking it, but can you repeat the question? I didn't quite know where to answer.
So was it the same ambition that Delta as a startup had while reaching to the market, while going into the market, that with the professional service and expensive ticket price? Because it's hard to get the
Yeah, no, you would be right. I mean, there are going to be aspects of when some products are introduced to the market, what are called loss leaders, right? It's okay if I lose money. Amazon was the biggest example of loss leader, right? They were actually, losing tons and tons of money while introducing all their different services and all that, right? So the notion of a loss leader is well known in but what it also means is you have to have deep pockets. Right? If you have one business which is running very well, and then I'm running a startup that's actually drawing from that other business, that's one way, versus who has the deep pockets to support something, right? Delta, by the way, started off 100 years ago, 1925, as a crop dusting company. So the same ambition was not there of running passenger planes as a crop dusting company. But the point I think you were trying to make is, will your ambitions change as you go forward? And they will, right? They absolutely will. And the whole notion of, our motto is keep climbing. That's exactly what I'll leave you with. Keep climbing. Yeah. Okay. I think we're probably done. We're way over, right? Wow. Half hour. Thank you for staying. Thank you for staying. Yeah. And kk@delta.com. or anirban.chakraborty, BORTY @delta.com are our emails. Sorry, Anirban.
Yeah, anirban.chakraborty.
Yeah. So, okay. So if you want to have any questions, send it along. And I know some people I talk to are going to send me email, but all of you are most welcome to send us emails, and we'll hopefully get them answered. Okay. The tough ones, I don't know. It might go into the bid bucket. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. You've been a fantastic audience.
Thank you, KK and Anirban, for this fantastic session this evening. And from the very, the duration of the session itself, that we can, easily understand how engaged the audience was, right? Like the number of questions and like all of that. So thank you so much for all the wonderful insights. In fact, the advantage of the IIT ecosystem itself is our opportunity, because our alumni have done so well in various fields that the students here, when we were there, we also got this opportunity to listen to, stalwarts like you in your own fields, like so, and get opportunities to interact. So I hope the student community here also, as he said, he has given his email ID. So hopefully you will leverage all this expertise and all these opportunities to take things forward. Thank you again on behalf of the student and the staff community at IIT Madras. We express our sincere gratitude to you. We look forward to staying in touch with you. Thank you, and wish you all a very happy evening, whatever is left of that. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Bye.